What the hell are we supposed to use, man? Harsh language?
Three, two, one. We're rolling. Hello, sir.
Hello. Actually,
Oh,
other way.
other way.
There we go.
Welcome to episode 68. We are minus Marvin this week.
Yeah.
He's scheduling conflicts, but we do have an exciting announcement, Dusty, don't we?
Yes, we do.
So, an update to our website, harshlanguage.tv, is in the works. Should be hopefully live probably by the end of tonight, but just check back. But we now have merch available. We had some people ask us, when you get merch. So now we have some merch, just basic like logo stuff for now, but have a couple of ideas cooking up that we'll get out there. So no pressure, but
yeah,
if you'd like
if it's
to...
not live by the time this video's out, it'll be live by the next one, and we'll tweet it out, so go follow us on Twitter.
That's right.
No, as soon as it comes out.
That's right. But yeah, if you want to represent harsh language, now you have the chance to do so. No pressure, of course, but yeah. So harshlanguage.tv, check it out. All our links are on there, merch, other stuff, other ways to support the channel. We are talking about Saint Maud later in the episode.
Yeah.
A movie I was excited to watch. So stick around for that. And yeah, how was your week?
It was, I had a doozy of a day today.
Really?
I was driving into town, and my hood flew up on my pickup truck and blinded me.
Oh no!
I had to literally went
what the
on
fuck?
the windshield. I don't know. I didn't notice it. I guess last time I closed it, the a bolt fell out of the hinge, and so when I closed it, I think it bent it. So it was kind of rocking
dangerous.
a little bit, and the wind caught it. Yeah, I couldn't see shit. Luckily, there was somebody a little bit behind me, but I was able to hit the brakes pretty quick, and they threw their hazards on. I could see that, so I was just kind of creeping down on the road until I found a driveway, and so I'm sitting on the side of the road for about half an hour, trying to unbolt the hood of my truck so I could throw it in the bed and continue my drive. So I had to order some hinges when I got home, and they'll be here Friday. So I got that looking forward to.
Okay.
Yeah, that was a little scary. It happened to me once before
How
when I was
fast
in
were
my
you driving?
20s. About 45, 50. I wasn't going too fast. I was accelerating. That's why it popped up, I think. But it happened once before, and that was my fault. I didn't close the hood all the way, and I was checking the oil or something. But this time, I don't know. This is just a fluke.
Hey, real quick, you got a little popping going on, so you got to do a little reset.
Oh, yeah. The task manager detail. Okay. Thank you. All right. Fixed it.
Nice.
So yeah, other than that, my week has been uneventful. I watched some movies besides the normal shows I watched. I got to watch a couple of movies this week that were pretty good, and a couple that were pretty bad.
Funny story, similar to yours. I think I've told you, when I was a younger man, I used to work for a car stereo shop, or car electronics, but we did stereos and alarms and remote starts and shit like that, video systems. But we had a customer in, and he had a Dodge Viper that we were working on. We were working on it for 2 months, and it was a Dodge Viper that had a removable roof.
Oh yeah,
snapped into place.
And
we sent him on his way, and I guess we all just forgot to because the roof was sitting on in place, but it wasn't snapped into place. And 5 minutes after he drove off, it fucking blew off and shattered into a million pieces. And that was a fun day.
Yeah.
The boss was not happy to have to replace that. It was thousands of dollars.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he lost out on that one, I bet, because you had it a couple of months. Had a complete rewiring.
I think we did a custom trunk or something, you know, with like the
Yeah.
you remember like back in the day the custom stereos and the trunks were like popular for like show cars, like the
Yep.
neon and all that. So I think it was something like that. But yeah, and I think
This is-
we did ground effects on it. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, he lost money on that job.
Oh yeah, that was not a great day. But
No.
yeah, I actually spent the week catching up on some stuff too. I got back into my show watching groove. I'd been off of it
Yeah.
for a couple weeks. I finished this season of Only Murders in the Building. Did you finish that?
I have not. No, that's on my list. Actually, I'll probably finish that this weekend.
Great show. Great show.
Yeah, I watched like the first 4 episodes of the season, but I haven't finished it.
Yeah, this season was really good. Paul Rudd's in this season. He's pretty funny.
Yeah, yeah.
And it got renewed for a 4th season now, which is exciting
Nice.
because it ended on quite the cliffhanger.
Okay. I was going to say, like, I don't know. I mean, I get it. They could probably keep it going for a long time, but it might start getting a little old. Like, they're always in the middle of a.
I don't know. I mean, the genre, the whodunit genre, I feel like is ever like you could just continue to do it. I feel like for as long as you want, as long as you're coming up with like interesting stories. Because I think what works for the show is the characters themselves have like pretty good story arcs.
Yeah.
Like it's not just about the whodunit. Like season 1 was really about what's her name's character, Selena Gomez, and like her traumas and
Yes.
her personal stuff. Season 2 was about what's his name's Steve Martin's character and like his stuff. This season's more about Martin Short's character. So like
Right.
as long as they keep having interesting storylines that are taking place along with the murder, I feel like it could be interesting. But
I guess a good guest star every now and again makes it even more entertaining.
Yeah. And this season does something. Well, I guess I can't really say because I'll spoil it for you. Well, not really. I mean, he's dead, so it's not really much of a spoiler. But like generally, generally in like whodunit or shows in general, whenever like Walking Dead or some other stuff, a lot of the time, you know, I always go on and on about how I could predict shit. Well, usually it's easy because like in a show, usually like the new person on the show is like the fucking number one suspect most of the time.
Right.
But this show kind of didn't really do that. Like they used
it was a nice twist that you think he's dead and then he comes back.
Yeah.
And then he dies. I think that's where I'm about right now is they're like Steve Martin's like trying to get everybody to fucking bring their scarves. He's like, "Where's your scarf? What's a scarf? Come on, let's see the scarves."
So yeah, I finished that. That was great. And then I also started and finished, and I watched it in like 2 sittings. The Fall of the House of Usher.
Oh, the whole season's out?
Yeah.
Netflix show. Yeah.
Netflix, yep. My boy Mike Flanagan, baby. He's just another Mike Flanagan banger. Shit was so good.
Yeah.
That was
too.
yeah, that was real good. It's not really like scary. There's some creepy moments, but it's a very loose adaptation of a short story from Edgar Allan Poe. And the short story is like the framework for the story, I guess, in the show. And then there's a lot of like elements and stuff taken from other Edgar Allan Poe works. That was really good. So was a big fan of that.
The Carpenter show yet at all? Where like
No.
they go through like real shits, like real murder mystery stuff that happens in like small towns of America. That's out right now. I don't think it's done, but it's a weekly one.
No, but I love true crime stuff, so. Did you watch the movie Reptile? I'm pretty sure you did. I'm pretty sure you mentioned
Suburban Screams. Yeah, I did watch Reptile.
Oh, Suburban Screams is the John Carpenter show.
Yeah. It's on Peacock.
Yeah, he directed the first episode.
Yeah.
He remotely directed it, actually, I found out.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was recently at the there was a Halloween 45th anniversary convention, and he surprised everybody and showed up, which was actually pretty cool. There was a panel with him and like a lot of the original stars. Jamie Lee wasn't there. He's such a funny, just grumpy old man. It's hilarious. Like people ask him just the most inane shit, and he just like wants nothing to do with it. And the answer to every one of his questions is like, "Is there money involved?" Because people are like, "Oh, hey, would you be willing to like do like I don't know anything?" And he's like, "Am I gonna get paid?" He's like, "If I get paid, I'll do anything."
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he talked a little bit about Suburban Screams. He directed the first episode remotely through like Skype or whatever the fuck. And he said that was pretty interesting, but went very smoothly. So yeah, I've been looking forward to watching that one. It's basically like reenactments of, it's like true crime with like reenactments essentially, but like I guess more professional, like cinematic reenactments. But yeah,
some of them are pretty cheap.
I'll be checking that out. And the next thing I'm probably going to watch is Goosebumps. I've been looking forward to that.
Yeah, I saw that was out.
I don't know if it's like a full release or if it's like week by week, but
I think it's week to week.
Gotcha. Yeah, did you watch Reptile? You mentioned it, right? I think
I did. Yes,
is
actually.
Is it good?
Watched it twice.
Oh, so it is good.
So, well, I watched it, and this was when I was house sitting at my brother's, and they got back, and I told my sister-in-law about it, and they sat down and watched it, but she fell asleep. Yeah. And so I watched it that night, and then they tried to watch it again the next night because she wanted to finish it. So they watched it again, and I'm like, I'm not watching it a third time. I'm gonna go do something else. And then I told my roommate about it, or he asked me about it. I was like, yeah, it's good, but I've already seen it like 2.5 times. So
are they like marketing the fuck out of it? Because like my mother watched it and was like, Did you watch Reptile? Did you watch Reptile? I'm like,
it's just a highly rated, movie that hit Netflix where it's got some big names in it. So movies like that, when they come out, they hit on Netflix pretty quick. And
yeah,
Netflix, they brand the shit out of stuff. So
all right, well, I'll have to add that to my list then.
It's a little long, but it's good. It's okay. It's a good watch.
2 hours, not too bad.
Yeah, it's like 2 movies. It's like you get the first hour and then the second hour.
I got to start on Loki. I'm just letting it build up a little bit. Have you been watching Loki?
Yeah.
Is it good?
Yeah, it's good. I mean, there's only 2 episodes so far, but yeah, I think the next one is tomorrow, right? Yeah.
Has like zero excitement around it. Which
is it today?
Understandable given the track record recently.
I mean, it's good. I like Loki. It's one of the few shows that got a second season in the MCU Disney Plus show series that they do. But did you
watch the video that I sent you guys, the Screen Crush?
Oh no, the one where about the cancellation was.
I'm sure some
clickbait title.
Yeah, well, I'm sure some of it. Well, I'm sure some of it is going to be in your news, but
yes, it is.
TLDR, basically, Disney is like completely restructuring the way they like
their methodology that they decided to go with when they started it is not working.
No,
and they're going to the linear television design.
Yeah, they're going to a more television structure. But some of the stuff that's probably not in your news, the interesting part of it, he was talking to like some of his colleagues in the video, and like, basically about how like some of the shows that even we have, like the shows that have been like unanimously like not great are the ones that just feel like a long movie chopped up.
Yep.
And it explains stuff with like Moon Knight. Moon Knight felt like it had no fucking structure to it because like you're watching something and it's just like the plot just like dies and you're like, wait, what? Whereas in a movie it works differently, but in a show that you have to stretch over the course of a half hour or whatever, just doesn't work. But apparently the problems with apparently there was like some sort of big like huge like fucking earth-shattering news about the production of Secret Invasion, which explains why it was so bad. Like apparently there was like a fuck ton of infighting during the production, and like
all of the shows have had it. Yeah. And we'll talk about we go into a little bit when we get to it in the news.
All right. Yeah. Well, you might as well get into it.
Any good movies? Well, I watched Totally Killer. Have you seen that one yet? Did you watch that? That's the Amazon Prime horror.
No, I saw it and I was thinking about watching it. I haven't watched it yet.
It's a good watch. I recommend it. It's modern day. There was the Sweet 16 murders, is what they call them, back in the day, and this girl's mom was involved in it, kind of.
What's it called again?
Spoiler alert. Totally Killer.
It's a comedy, right?
But yeah, it's a comedy horror. So the girl's mom dies in the very beginning, and then she goes back in time, and she's trying to stop the murder from happening. So she goes back to the 80s,
Yeah.
and she's in the 80s. So yeah, she's got her cell phone and everything with her. It's kind of pretty funny.
That sounds very similar to the plot of a movie with what's his name, Thomas Middleditch. He was in a movie called The Final Girls. Have you seen that?
No, I actually haven't seen that.
It's actually really good, and it's a very similar premise. Basically, a young chick, she's like one of the characters. Her mom is a famous scream queen because she was in like a famous like horror movie back in the 80s or whatever.
Right.
She dies, spoiler, in the beginning. It's not really a spoiler.
Yeah.
And her and her friends, the daughter, who's the main character, her and her friends get like transported into the horror movie that her mom was in.
Okay. So yeah, it's like Last Action Hero kind of meets.
Kind of.
Yeah.
But like Thomas Middleditch plays like the horror movie expert, so he's like the survivalist because he knows like the rules of horror movies and stuff. Yeah. Adam Devine is in it, and he's fucking funny. It's a great movie.
I also watched Expendables 4, which is terrible.
Oh yeah, I could imagine.
Stop making those.
Yeah, I could imagine. Not great.
Yeah, the only thing I watched was The Burial, which is I think one of my roommates watching right now. It's Jamie Foxx. I think his first movie that's come out since everything that happened to him. And,
there's one with Tommy Lee Jones, right?
Tommy Lee Jones, yeah. It's based on a true story. Jamie Foxx is an up-and-coming lawyer who wins all of his cases, and Tommy Lee Jones is an old funeral home owner that's trying to pass on his business, and it's a pretty good story. It's a good watch. So
nice.
Recommend that one. But yeah,
I was gonna watch. The Denzel movie last night, and I didn't.
Oh, Equalizer 3.
Yeah. I was gonna do that.
That's a good watch too.
But then I didn't. But yeah.
Well, the news then.
Yeah, let's get into it.
Okay, we still got the SAG after strike going on. The two sides met, I think, 5 times since October 2nd. That was the first time they met because they didn't meet at all until the WGA strike was over. But the studio execs walked away, I think, on last Wednesday, and suspended negotiations indefinitely. Apparently, what the guild was wanting was incredulous, I guess. They initially wanted, one of the big things that they wanted was they wanted a 1% levy on all streaming revenue. But then they changed that to like they wanted $1 per subscriber per year.
Right.
To which then they countered, they came down to, I think, 50 cents per subscriber per year in the wake of like dwindling residuals. Like Netflix doesn't pay anybody residuals, whatever.
Right.
So they're and Marvin's not here for this one, but we recently reported that they raised their prices. They're raising their prices again.
Of course.
Like not even a week or two later.
Yeah.
So there's that. But
so hold on a second. So apparently Netflix, as of the second quarter of this year, has around 238 million paid subscribers. Yeah. So that's $238 million. That's like nothing.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So here's the numbers. But the studio execs described it as an untenable economic burden or a levy on subscribers on top of other areas, as well as a bridge too far. This would cost the AMPTP studios about $800 million a year. Okay.
Yeah, that's nothing.
The revenue for the AMPTP studios in 2022 was $220 billion.
Yeah, it's like a drop in the bucket.
And they're like, we want $800 million a year. No, they're like, that's untenable. We can't do that.
You know, it's funny.
And they're raising their prices.
It's funny because, so I mentioned I watched Fall of the House of Usher. Mike Flanagan, he likes to spin sort of like, I guess, culturally relevant narratives into his stories. Not ever in like a preachy or like woke way. It's usually, it like makes sense to the plot. For instance, Midnight Mass. Did you watch Midnight Mass?
Mm-hmm.
You know how Midnight Mass had like obviously heavy religious themes, but like towards the end, she has that like monologue about like it's like very scientific, like about death and hey, we're part of the universe or whatever the fuck. Very Carl Sagan-y. Well, this show is about a billionaire family. They are a family, the Usher family. They own like the largest pharmaceutical company in the world in this show. So the show has a lot of like themes about like the pharmaceutical industry and the medical industry as a whole, and how corrupt it is, and how our healthcare system is a fucking joke and a travesty, and like all this stuff. But at the end, one of the characters, she is, well, I won't really say, but she describes how like humankind is insane because like we could literally cure like all the problems of the world if we like stop producing movies for like a year, basically. Like you would just have so much fucking money if you took the budget of like every movie that is made in a single year and like put it into like homelessness, for instance. Like you could probably end homelessness at least for a little bit. It was just kind of funny. You reminded me of that because it's like,
those movie studios made $220 billion.
Right. It's like a drop. What the actors are asking for is like a drop in the fucking bucket. And they're like, oh yeah, it's too much of a financial burden. Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, AI is another thing that they're complaining about. And on that, 4 senators are sponsoring a new bill, a bill discussion draft titled Nurture Originals, Foster Art, and Keep Entertainment Safe Act, or the No Fakes Act. So, yeah, they got really fucking fancy with their acronym there. But it's being proposed to protect actors, singers, and others from having their voice and likeness become AI generated. This is a bipartisan discussion bill. I think there's 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans. I think Amy Klobuchar is one of the representatives. But some claim this will hurt smaller content creators like YouTube or Twitch streamers that use a lot of the Fair Use Act because they're saying it'll be more of a gray area. Because in it also references still images. So like if you do fan art, and you want to draw like somebody like that, they could come after you for this.
Well, listen, they got
AI generated images as well. So.
They got to do something because AI is scary and it's getting scarier like by the second. I think we talked about it. I saw a video of some guy on Twitter. He's like a developer of some AI app, and he posted a video, and it's like him speaking about he's talking about the app, and at the end it's revealed that what you're watching is an AI generated version of himself with his voice. It's fucking scary because like, listen, I'm a fucking designer. Like I could usually spot like Photoshopped shit or whatever. This is like indistinguishable from reality. It's crazy.
Interesting.
So if people could make something of just like politicians saying crazy fucking shit, you could have like World War III like
there.
breakout.
Deepfakes are out,
Well, deepfake is like nothing compared to this. It's actually crazy. It's really crazy.
Yeah. So, if the bill passes, it's just a discussion bill right now. I don't even think it's out of any committee or in a committee, but if it passes, it would hold people, companies, and platforms liable if they produce or host digital replicas without consent. And on that note, before the Actors Guild strike got underway, the Gladiator sequel began filming, and extras are now reporting that the production staff had started pulling individuals aside and taking them to wardrobe and makeup about 10 at a time. And telling them that they were going to have their faces scanned, and they put them in a booth and scanned their faces. And they didn't think anything of it. Then actually some people were saying, people ask like, hey, do you want to get scanned? And lots of people raised their hand because they didn't know anything. And then once the strike happened and everybody's talking about AI and everything, that's when these reports started coming in. So,
well, that's interesting too, because like if you think of like Marvel, for instance, they've got scans of everybody because they do it from mocap.
Right.
So like, what's the
well? Yeah, this is like for Gladiator. I mean, I kind of get it because like you hire 100 extras or even 1,000 extras, and then like you're doing a scene in the Coliseum where you need like 10 or 20,000 people.
Yeah.
they just would rather scan people, which I could get. Like, that makes sense. It's cheaper to do that, but at least pay the people if you're going to do it.
Well, right, but the dirty, rotten secret that they're probably trying to do is like, okay, well, we have full scans of fucking Robert Downey Jr., for instance, as an example.
Right.
Well, if there's no law or anything against it, we could just make an AI version of him and not have to pay him.
Right.
We can fucking get Robert Downey Jr. for essentially like, you know.
Well, yeah, and after this movie, like the problem is like after
1/10 of
Gladiator,
the
like
price.
these people got paid as extras in Gladiator, but now that their scans are with the studio, like the studio could use them as extras in every other movie they make, and they'll never know unless they see it, and then that's also a problem. Like,
Yeah.
it's where you don't get residuals and shit. So,
No, it's a weird new territory that we're in for sure.
We're in a new age. Speaking of the AMPTP, 2,300 film and TV producers are petitioning them to drop the second P in their acronym. This is the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers, because they don't really represent film and television producers. They represent the studios, but they just called it that because they produce movies and television. So,
gotcha.
yeah, they're they're trying to get that done. So who knows if that's going to do anything, but there's a petition going around to get the AMPTP to change their fucking name. So, yeah. Okay, where are we at here? On to WB, I guess. The big news, or it's not news. This is just rumors. You told me about this one. I'd kind of heard about it, but I didn't look into it. Kurt Russell is alleged to play Jor-El. Rumors are swirling around on the internet about that.
I could see it.
What is it?
Fucking love Kurt Russell.
There was a user on Reddit claiming to have seen and worked on concept art for DC, and it describes some of the characters that I've seen and worked on, one of them being Jor-El. And now, when they do concept art, a lot of times artists will just randomly put somebody's face in there.
Right.
But considering James Gunn has worked with Kurt Russell in the past, and he's a great actor, and he might bring him over, then it doesn't, it's not all that surprising that he's on there. So the other one was Skylar Gisondo as Jimmy Olsen. And then there was a Brainiac drone. Those were the three. Skylar Gisondo.
I'm not sure who that is.
He looks like a Jimmy Olsen. I think it's Gisondo. Yeah, Skylar Gisondo. He was in Vacation and Righteous Gemstones, Night at the Museum, Booksmart. He's been in a couple.
Wait,
movies.
Say his name again?
I'll just send it to you real quick, so you can just copy paste it.
Yeah, you said Righteous Gemstones, so that means I'm probably familiar with him. Oh, yeah, I know exactly who you're talking about. The kid. He'd be the perfect Jimmy Olsen. Yeah.
Yeah, he's definitely Jimmy Olsen. And we don't know, like Brainiac, there's a Brainiac drone, but that doesn't mean Brainiac's going to be in the movie. That just means the Brainiac presence will probably be there if they're doing concept arts for that. So we'll see. This is all just speculation and rumors. It's partially verified because it's true that the concept art exists, but it's not confirmed because, like we said last week, we're not going to hear any announcements until after the actor strike. So
yeah.
And then Variety came out with a report recently that James Gunn and Peter Safran do not have total control over the DC universe.
Yeah,
and that WB and Max remain creatively involved with the DC slate, which is interesting because this kind of contradicts what James Gunn said back in February. When he started going on his spiel, he actually replied to somebody, I think, on Instagram, and he's like, DC is separate from Warner Brothers as of a couple months ago when he got hired. But the report also says that the relationship between WB execs and DC has been going seamlessly. So I kind of get this. I don't even know why it's kind of a story, but I saw it, so I thought I'd report on it. Because they're going to do their Elseworlds, and they're going to license some of this IP elsewhere. Which that's the problem I think James Gunn had with WB, is that they're treating it as IP instead of like stories that can be told. And that's kind of how James Gunn sees it. These are stories that need to be told. And they need to be told right. Whereas WB's like, we can just license it and make some money because we own it. So that's all we care about. But yeah. And then what do we have here? Gerard Zalier, the president of International at Warner Brothers Discovery, said that they stand alone with Netflix as the only two streaming companies that are profitable. But he did say Max is only getting slightly profitable in the first half of 2023. And he also said what we see in at least the last, let's say, 12 months is that the era of streaming we saw with an over delivery of content underpriced at this low level is over. More rational attitudes are beginning to prevail. And so, yeah, this is all from the announcement that Max streaming services are going to roll out in 22 European countries starting in the spring. We talked about them having the sports packages and live sports, which includes MLB, NHL, NBA, and March Madness. But yeah, it looks like Max is actually starting to become profitable, and they're not even done rolling out to all the countries. So they're doing all right while other companies are drowning in debt. So I thought that was interesting.
Okay.
And that's really all the WB news we have. There hasn't been a lot of WB news, but we got a lot of stuff Disney to talk about.
Oh yeah.
It is not Monday when we normally record, but Monday was Disney's birthday. They are actually 100 years old.
It's a big
they released
big birthday.
Yeah. Actually, I'm probably going to Disneyland this year when I go out
nice.
to California this winter, and I've never been. So this will be a first for me, and it'll
I've
be
only
exciting
been
to
to
see
Disney
how they do
World.
it on their centennial. Yeah,
Oh, you'll probably see some crazy shit.
yeah. They released a short, Once Upon a Studio. They released it on Disney Plus. It's like a 12-minute short, I think, where Mickey and Minnie, with the help of Tinkerbell, try to get 453 characters, villains included, together for a group photo. They even snuck in Robin Williams' voice because he's the genie. So I don't know how they did that. There's some articles you can look up if you really care. But I haven't watched this yet. I'm interested in seeing how good it is, but it's just a little 10, 12-minute short. It's on Disney Plus. So, yeah.
Did you watch the Wes Anderson short yet? The one with
no.
Benedict Cumberbatch?
No, I have not.
Oh, okay.
No, there's also a new Scorsese short with Timothy Chalamet.
Chalamet,
yeah. Sean Levy was doing an interview with The Wrap on Deadpool 3, talking about it. He says, I don't know if we officially have a release date. I know we were gonna be May 3. Certainly the actor strike and the long pause in production has put that release date in true risk. He says, we shot half the movie. I've edited half the movie. We're dying to get back to work and get this movie out next year. So that's the update that we have on Deadpool 3. It may hit its mark. It may not. And apparently he was there at the Kansas City Chiefs game. I missed this. I don't know how I missed this. When Taylor Swift was there with Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman and Blake Lively, Sean Levy was there with them.
Yeah.
And he was asked recently about whether or not Taylor Swift, who's been in our news the last 3 weeks now, whether she's going to be, the Dazzler.
Yeah.
There's rumors the Swifties are trying to promote that. He declined to comment on the rumors. He basically said, I'm going across the board, no comment, because that's a double whammy. That's Taylor related and it's MCU related. I'm no dummy. You're going to have to wait and see. So there's no confirmation or denial there. Just go see the fucking movie if you want to know for sure, which we'll all know when it comes out. But yeah, Taylor Swift might be the Dazzler, which is the musical mutant in the MCU.
Yeah. So that could be cool. I'm a Swiftie.
Yeah.
I'm now a Swiftie. I don't care. I don't give a fuck.
All right. And then we got, speaking of Moon Knight, Mohammed Diab, director of Moon Knight, he spoke with Arabic Marvel about the future of Moon Knight. He basically said Marvel projects are all 6 episodes, except for special projects like WandaVision. Loki is the only series they said that will be, 2 parts from the day one. So successful or not, Marvel has a plan whether or not a show will get a second season, because they were asking him if there was going to be a second season of Moon Knight. So who knows? But yeah. Then we got Vincent D'Onofrio. He was speaking on Twitter about the Daredevil news. They basically, after the writer's strike, fired all the writers and the directors and stuff, and they're saying it's canceled or it's a soft reboot. It seems like it's a soft reboot. But he was posting on Twitter. He's like, we're going to bring forward the best series we can. Every cool project I've been involved with has evolved constantly during pre-production, production, and post. It's simply a bunch of creatives doing the best to get it right. I wouldn't have it any other way. Frankly, I'd be worried if we were settling for less. But not long after that, after the shit he took from fans, he decided to leave Twitter. I think he might have left Instagram. So no more Vincent D'Onofrio tweets on Twitter. But as for the Daredevil canceled reboot, Daredevil Born Again, it's basically a creative reboot.
Yeah.
I think basically during COVID, Disney jumped headfirst into these $150 million, $200 million TV shows. And like Mohammed Diab said, there are only 6 episodes, and Disney was not ordering pilots. They did not have show Bibles. They did not have showrunners or TV executives. They were trying to do it this whole different way.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them worked out okay. Most of them kind of fell flat. And we've talked about this quite a bit on the show.
Before you go forward, I think we should break it down a little bit. For anybody who isn't aware, a TV production is like vastly different from a movie production. A movie production, you have a writer, you have writers, write the script, write the screenplay, and they dump it off into a director's hands who then interprets that stuff and makes the fucking movie. Where you have a producer who essentially puts all the things together, the money and fucking all that. Well, a show production is a lot different. You have the writers.
Yep.
And then generally, directors are brought in a lot of the time to do single episodes. Sometimes they're brought back.
But you have a showrunner.
And then you have a showrunner. So a good example of that is Breaking Bad. Vince Gilligan was the primary writer of the show and also the showrunner. So every decision, writing, direction, everything goes through Vince Gilligan.
Mm-hmm.
He is the showrunner. He controls it all. With these Marvel shows, they never had any of that. And what Dusty was just talking about is ordering a pilot and having a show Bible. A show Bible is ultimately like a fucking, what's the thing you get like on the first day of school? What was that called again? Like the fucking...
A syllabus.
A syllabus. It's basically like that. Like it outlines like what your goals are for the series. And 99% of shows start with a pilot. A pilot is filmed as a one-off. It's just as a proof of concept. Like, hey, this is our show. Once the pilot is viewed in like, the studio or whatever decides to greenlight the project.
The executives, look at it.
Then you go forward.
Can it?
Yeah. And Marvel's not doing any of this shit. What they did was Disney shot them out of a cannon. Disney clearly wanted to create a streaming site. Very obvious.
Well, yeah, and they wanted to add depth to their the Marvel
I don't think it had anything
universe.
to do with depth. I think it was. I really, literally think it was the studio, Disney in this case, being like, "Yo, we want to launch a streaming service. Marvel's our number one property at the moment. Go make us a fuck ton of shows to sell it." And that's just what happened.
Yeah,
and that's why
Marvel,
there's
Star Wars. Yeah, I guess Marvel would be bigger than.
Well,
hard to say.
Legacy-wise, Star Wars for sure, but I think as of late, you can't argue. Like fucking Endgame is like one of the most profitable movies of all time. So,
well, I'm just saying they had a lot of Star Wars content
for sure
to put on their streaming platform because you had the Clone Wars and Rebels and all the old movies and shit.
And that's why you have all this fucking stuff, all these rumors these past bunch of months, years even, of like Kevin Feige spread too thin. He had no hand in this thing, and he had no control over this project, and people are leaving, and that's why, like, Phase 4... Do you know that there was more content in Phase 4 alone than there was in all the previous 3 phases combined? That's insane.
Well, I mean, okay.
It's
yes
a fact.
and no.
That's a fact, by the way, but yeah.
As far as in the MCU, sure. I will say that there's more. I think the content is relatively similar because you're talking 8 seasons of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Forget about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
That is Marvel content.
I understand that, but that was not part of the... I mean...
Right. So like Daredevil and all the Netflix shows. Right.
Those were under the control of a different person at the time. Yeah.
Exactly.
So, but content-wise,
those shows
just
had
MCU,
showrunners, and that's why they were so good.
But talking just MCU,
yes, you're right.
There has been more content, movies and shows, in
Correct.
phase 4 than all the previous 3 phases combined. That's crazy. That's a crazy amount of output because phase 4 only started a couple of years ago at this point.
So what, so it's, in 15 years, they've got, I think, including the Marvels, 32 movies, 25 TV shows, but 12 of those shows were pre-MCU Disney Plus, and only 9 of those shows have aired in the MCU era.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I get it, but yeah, back to the Daredevil soft reboot. This was supposed to be an 18 episode show. It was always supposed to be 18 episodes, but Disney wanted to split it in halves. So they were gonna air half of it, and then 9 to 12 months later, they were gonna air the second half. But then they were gonna try and license the first half to other studios to get people to watch it, so that they would come to Disney Plus and subscribe to watch the second half. Is what it sounds like what they were trying to do. But Feige had a chance to sit down and review what had been done before the strikes stopped production, and he apparently was not happy with it. Some of the rumors are Murdoch wasn't even going to suit up for like the first 4 or 5 episodes of the first half. And this is a show about Daredevil, which, I mean, we kind of got it in the Netflix series when he got injured. What was it, season 3, when he spent all that time in the church and he wasn't really suiting up or doing anything. But this is like he gives up becoming Daredevil. And so for like 4 episodes, he's just a lawyer.
Yeah.
And he's trying to fight Fisk with the law. And people are like, this is your only superhero in a superhero show. And he's not suiting up. People are not going to like that, especially if you cut it in half and make people wait 12 months to watch it when he is actually suited up and doing shit.
The whistle blowing article, so to speak, that had come out basically described it as like a fucking like lighthearted, like legal fucking show, like some like, come on guys, like what are we doing here?
Yeah.
And it's clear like you can't like and you know, Kevin Feige and other like they know you can't go from like the Daredevil we had on Netflix to some lighthearted like people won't stand for that.
Right. Well, and I don't know if they're keeping it. I don't know if I should spoil it, but
they're not.
Why? Well, they're keeping some of the content. They're not reshooting everything. Some of it, and so the story was like,
I thought they were blowing it all.
Foggy
up.
dies, and so he hangs up the suit and just becomes a lawyer, and so he's fighting Fisk. But the police are starting to misuse the Punisher logo, and he doesn't like that because.
Wait, was that the actual? Where'd you hear that? I didn't hear any of that.
Oh yeah, this is this is from some of our famous leakers. Can we get some toast?
Bro, let me tell you something.
Shine, hello.
Because that's going on in real life. I don't know if we've talked about it on the show, but the misuse of the Punisher logo is happening in real life, and it's egregious. Yeah. And these fucking tough guys with badges who think that they know what the Punisher is about, you'd be the first motherfucker that dude would fucking bury, okay? You corrupt motherfuckers.
Yeah.
If that would be the concept, oh my God, I would fucking.
But that was the concept, but
be blowing.
Apparently, Feige wasn't happy with it. But this isn't new, like this type of reboot. I mean, Jeremy Slater was the creator and writer of Moon Knight, and he quit and was replaced by Mohammed Diab. Jessica Gao developed and wrote She-Hulk. She was released when the director Coro came on. Kyle Bradstreet was replaced on Secret Wars after a year of script writing. So, you know, this has all been like, this is also part of the problem with these Marvel shows is there's no continuity, and whether they're like, okay, we'll do this. And then 6 months to a year into it, they're like, no, we're going to get somebody else. And that's why they struggle. So I don't know, maybe because Feige is hands-on now, he's going to fix this shit because this is Daredevil, and Daredevil was really good on Netflix, and he can't let it be shit on Disney Plus, because if it is, he might be on his way out the door.
My nipples just got hard, though, with the Punisher thing you just told me about. Yeah. But also, there is, I had saw another rumor that apparently part of the plot was that Fisk is trying to run for mayor.
Yeah.
And part of his mayoral bid, his shtick is like, oh, we got to get vigilantes off the street.
And the cops start using the Punisher logo, and Daredevil's not having it.
But also,
Matt Murdock is not having it.
There's a world, though, where fucking Spider-Man could be involved in that, too, because the way No Way Home ended is now Spider-Man has been relegated back to a street-level hero.
Well, they are going to be together in the animated show.
No, I know that, but
so it's possible that they're also together in this show.
oh
But
my
that's
God,
just
we need a Spider-Man
who
Punisher
knows?
team up.
Yeah.
But also, they're naming the show Born Again, and it like was literally nothing to do with the Born Again comic book, which is like one of the best comic books ever made.
Well, and this goes back to the whole actor thing, and the showrunner for the original Daredevil show said that they did that because they don't have to pay me any residuals or premiums, because they could just call it Daredevil, but then they'd have to pay me because I created Matt Murdock Daredevil, and they're using him. They're just naming it a different name, so they don't have to. They're basically resetting everybody's salaries and don't have to pay any residuals for the other Daredevil stuff, and so they can bring in what characters or actors they like and dump everybody else and start over from the pay scales. So that's kind of why it's called Born Again.
Are they keeping that concept with the Punisher logo?
I don't know how much they're keeping or how much they're getting. The report is that they're going to rewrite a lot of it, but that Feige is happy with some of it. So we may, like, if they've shot some stuff and they're keeping it, I would imagine that some of that stuff is going to stay in there.
Fair enough.
At least some of the premises.
Okay.
So, yeah. And then Gargoyles. We're getting a live action Gargoyles series.
I used to love that show as a kid.
Yeah, Gary Dauberman, or D-A-U Dauberman is what I'm going to assume. I'm not going to call him Doberman. Set to write and EP and showrun the series with James Wan and Michael Clear of Atomic Monster, who's also set to executive produce. This was a 3-season animated show back in the 90s, I think 97 and earlier. The premises, they were what Stone by day, Warriors by night. Gargoyles were transferred from a castle in Scotland to New York, where a 1,000-year-old spell broke them free, and they were protectors of New York. So yeah, Dauberman and Wan worked together on the Annabelle films, which were part of the Conjuring universe, as well as the Swamp Thing series that was on the DC Universe platform. And Atomic Monster was one of the companies behind the Megan movie, and they're developing the Dead by Daylight film. So this looks like it's going to be like a darker, scarier tone of Gargoyles, which I'm stoked for. Like, this is news that I'm excited about. I liked that show back in the day, and it's got some good people involved. And like I said, Atomic Monster and Gary Dauberman are involved, so it looks like it's going to be a good show. And speaking of scary things, Fede Alvarez sent his movie. It is done. His Alien movie is done, and he sent it to Ridley Scott, and he said that scared the shit out of him. And he had to meet up in person. He didn't want to email him. He didn't want to get an email back that said Ridley Scott says this. He was so worried because he knows, like, Ridley Scott was he was pretty rough on Blade Runner 2049, and then he was asked about Top Gun Maverick, and he was just kind of like, meh. But he sent the Alien movie to Ridley Scott, and he said when Ridley Scott walked in the room, where's the quote here? Fede, what can I say? It's fucking great. Still titled Alien Romulus. I don't know if that's going to be the final name, but this is good news. I feel like, I mean, it's just Ridley Scott. He's one critic, but this is like his baby. So the fact that Fede's film is done and he showed it to Ridley Scott, and Ridley Scott thinks it's fucking great is good in my mind. But who knows? I mean, the Prometheus movie was,
awful.
Yeah.
Prometheus is one of the most overrated movies in human history. I don't know why people love that fucking movie. It is just not good. However, Fede Alvarez, his Evil Dead remake was great, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And that movie Don't Breathe is also very good.
Yeah, no, he's done some good stuff. And his only competition right now is like Noah Hawley's doing the Alien TV show, which is completely separate. But
yeah,
this is the movie. This is the next Alien movie we're gonna get, and apparently Ridley Scott loves it. So
hey, did you report on last week? I don't know if you I know you reported on the rumors of it, but Halloween was sold to Miramax officially.
Yeah.
Not sold, but they won the battle.
Miramax got the rights. Yeah, I don't think it was official yet because we had talked about the A24 and Miramax were fighting over it. But yeah,
no, I think it's officially Miramax now.
Yeah, it's official now. Miramax has it because I posted in our Discord channel that it was official, and they're making a cinematic universe for Halloween, and you were not happy about that, which I can understand.
No, that's dumb, but I will take a fucking show based off of Season of the Witch. That'd be sick.
Yeah, that would be. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that too. So, yeah. So that's it for Disney. We're on the etc. Netflix back in the news again. We already said they're raising their prices. I think $12 and $23 for their basic and premium.
Mm-hmm.
But Netflix, wholly responsible for the collapse of the video rental stores across the globe,
Yep.
are getting into the brick and mortar business.
Really?
Yeah, they plan to open up. Let's see. Josh Simon, the company's vice president of consumer products, was quoted as saying Netflix aims to open a network of stores offering retail, dining, and live entertainment that leverages TV shows and movies.
That could be kind of cool. Like you go out to you go out and watch like an episode of a fucking TV show.
Yeah, go watch they have like a Stranger Things type thing where, you're watching an episode of Stranger Things and you get weird food and stuff. I don't know how they're going to merch. I don't know how they're going to do it, but they're not getting into video rental. They actually just stopped doing DVD rental. I think they shipped their last DVD and they're done with that. But yeah, they're going to start opening brick and mortar stores for a customer experience thing. And they're also getting more into video games. I know they have some mobile games like classic solitaire or whatnot, but over the next several months, users will be able to play mobile games related to shows like Squid Games, Wednesday, and whatnot. And they're also in talks to expand that to Extraction and Black Mirror and other whatnot shows. But they're even in talks. They may get a GTA game through a licensing with Take-Two. That's what I was saying. But the estimates from a third-party company, only 1% of subscribers play Netflix games on a daily basis, but I don't think they have any good names right now, so that's why they're trying to...
I didn't even know they had games.
Yeah, but they're also trying to expand the PC and console, and they're hiring game devs and executives from wherever they can. They kind of want to turn... There's an idea, I thought, that they want to turn your phone into a controller so that, like, if you're watching Netflix, you can play a Stranger Things game and use your phone as the controller while you're playing on a TV, which, for hardcore gamers, it's like, no, the latency, go fuck yourself.
They're doing a little too much.
Not having. Yeah. But, yeah. And then, the whole Miramax thing we talked about. So the last piece of news here, A24. They're expanding their scope, Dan.
Nice. Let's go.
A top agent.
Give me all the A24, baby.
This is okay. So a top agent was reported as saying A24 acquisition executive Noah Sacco made talent agency rounds in search of action and big IPs, and that A24 was de-emphasizing the traditional character auteur-driven dramas. And then we have a distribution executive. These are all anonymous people who are saying these things. Everyone in the independent film space is aware that A24 needs to pivot to a more commercial films alongside its art house slate. With a $2.5 billion valuation, it's pretty obvious they need to expand into more commercial films. And then an individual close to A24 said they're not leaning away from the auteur dramas, but merely doing more. So, it kind of makes sense.
I feel like they're pretty commercial as is. Like their movies get fucking ton of hype all the time.
I think they want to. They've already released 15 movies this year, so their first year they didn't release that many movies, and then they did a deal with DirecTV and they started pumping them out more. But 15 movies this year already is a lot.
A movie like Saint Maud isn't as hype as like if Robert Eggers does a movie, like every motherfucker knows about it. It's like
sure, yeah, and that's the thing is, but that's why they kind of want to get into the more commercial side of films because they want to keep those people around. Like, they don't want to be a stepping stone for directors like Greta Gerwig or Robert Eggers. They want to keep those guys around and say, hey, we got some bigger budgets,
that makes
some
sense.
Bigger production movies. We want to keep them because that's where all these people got their starts.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Their biggest grossing films, obviously, Everything Everywhere All at Once is one of them. Midsommar, The Whale, Uncut Gems, Talk to Me, Ex Machina. These are all amazing films.
Hereditary, probably.
A lot of money. Yeah, I don't think that's in there. It may be in their top 10. I don't remember. I didn't write down the full top 10 list. But yeah, A24, they want to get into, they're still going to do their drama-driven auteur, character-driven dramas, but they're going to do a little bit more commercial stuff now. So yeah, that's the news.
All right. Thank you for the news. Real quick, just, Everything Everywhere All at Once, like had a $25 million budget. That's like pretty big.
Well, yeah, that's It is and it isn't. Like we've talked about this. Like that was kind of like the budget of what was um the Jerk. That was a low budget, but it made huge amounts. It was 25 million, and it made 120 million or so. The scale of it, like
That's
Hollywood
fair.
movies, are 200 to 500 million dollar budgets, like
Mhm.
big blockbuster movies. So
That's fair.
I get, but $2.5 billion valuation, you don't really want to blow $200 million on a movie if it's going to fail. So you got to be particular
For
about it.
sure.
Yeah, they're getting into it.
All right. Well, thank you for the news, Dusty. Appreciate that.
Mhm.
Speaking of A24, another great segue from
Mm-hmm.
Dusty. We have another A24 movie here this week. That is Saint Maud, a movie that I was pretty excited to watch. I had heard about it. It was on my radar. And of course, A24, as we talked about last week, just seems to only put out bangers.
We review a lot of their movies. I was actually thinking
because
about
they're
this.
great. They make great movies.
are
It
great.
just is what it
Yeah.
is. And this week we have Saint Maud. So, Dusty, is
Mhm.
religious fanaticism a form of mental illness?
Yes. Well, I mean, yeah.
I
I think no. I think if you, that's a good question.
well, I personally would argue that it is. And I would go a step further and say that just being religious in general is a mental illness, but that's, I'm sure that's
I mean,
unique
you
to
could
me.
You could argue that somebody just has a mental illness and they use an avenue that they have
Mhm.
to further that mental illness, which religion could be used as that.
Right.
But you could do secular things too, like witchcraft. You could go down the rabbit hole, like
Sure.
A24, the witch.
Yep. Well, from the perspective of the fanatic, such things are generally not only logical and justified, but unavoidable in some cases. They don't just choose to be fanatical, they're compelled to be fanatical. And the disparity between what a fanatic believes and what other people believe is the main concept in this film, Saint Maud. This is the first time, this directorial
Yes.
debut of Rose Glass.
Feature film debut.
Feature film debut, yes. And what a debut it is.
She wrote and directed it.
She wrote and directed it. And so I didn't really, I expected something way different than what this movie was going into it.
Me too.
I thought it was going to be like a religious sort of horror film, similar maybe to like The Exorcist, or
Right.
obviously not exactly The Exorcist, but just that genre, that religious horror, Pope's Exorcist, just horror movies that deal with religion. This is not really a horror movie, honestly.
Mhm.
This is more of like a character-driven drama / like psychological thriller more than anything.
It's
But this
a
movie,
slow burn.
yeah, it is a slow burn and a very, very short
Until the
running
end.
time, 1 hour and 20 minutes. Very short movie,
Yeah.
and they pack a lot into that 80. It's actually extraordinary how much Rose Glass was able to squeeze into that runtime. But this is the story of basically a pious nurse who becomes dangerously obsessed with saving the soul of her dying patient. And that's the description on IMDb. But does that description not... and that doesn't even scratch the surface of what this movie is. We talk about depth a lot. This movie has so much depth to it. It was like astounding. And a lot of it didn't even like strike me until I like sat with it and thought about it for a little bit afterwards. But this movie could be read in a variety of ways. I think it's an analysis of the interaction between like faith and self. It's about the life of a young woman who is suffering a severe mental breakdown.
Well, solitude and loneliness too.
I was just going to say,
drive you to those things.
it's a drama about loneliness. It's a story about possession, even for a moment or two. And it's also a tragedy about like the frailty of the human body. There's a lot of different themes and concepts explored in this movie, which again, I was like amazed by because it's so short and it was able to squeeze all that stuff into a short running time. But this the story is told mainly from the perspective of our main character, Maud, who is played by Morfydd Clark. I hope I pronounced that correctly.
How did you like the cold open on this one?
I thought it was great.
Okay.
We'll get into it in a bit,
Okay.
but because I was more taken by the ending.
Yeah.
Which is another well, we'll talk about it in a bit, but so our main character Maud, she is a newly reformed fanatical Christian nurse, and she is sent to care for our other main character, played by Jennifer Ehle.
Great actress.
Yeah, her character's name is what was it? Amanda.
Yeah, Amanda.
And Amanda is a former
ballerina,
I guess, like performance artist, and choreographer, and she is suffering late stage lymphoma, so she's basically dying, and Maud is like a live-in nurse, and she's coming to care for Amanda. Now what's super interesting about this, I thought, was that, now I said it's about like a lot of different things, and you mentioned the cold open. There's not a lot of information given about Maud and her mental state and like her experience. The cold open shows just like the aftermath of an incident, I guess you could say.
A tragedy that happens when she was a nurse at a hospital, yeah.
Well, you find that out later, but in the cold open, you don't know what the fuck is going on, really.
Yeah. And I went into this movie not having watched the trailer or read any synopsis or anything, so I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, so did they just show us the end of the movie? Like I had no idea.
Right, yeah. No, it was definitely interesting, and they only really tell you like tidbits about it later on in the movie too. You don't really get much information as to what happened. So we'll talk about like how I took it, and I guess how you took it, and whether or not we're on the same page. But yeah, Maud is now a fanatical Christian when we meet her in the movie. But it's cool because the story makes room for the possibility that, however unlikely, that her fanaticism isn't mental illness at all, and that God really is communicating with her. And it's just like a really, I think, excellently crafted ambiguity that this film has, because it always plays with like both sides of the thing, right? It's like a lot of it is like, well, no, she's clearly suffering some sort of like breakdown, or is she? Like it always does that, like during the film, which I thought was really cool. And it works because it's told through her perspective. For instance, there's a scene where she's questioning her faith, and all of a sudden there's this monologue from God, and he's telling her like, oh, there's something, I have something special for you. You'll know it when it comes, and this, that, and the other thing. But because it's told through her perspective, as the audience, you're like, well, wait, is God really talking to her, or is she fucking having a freak out? Like it's often hard to tell. So it never really like answers the question as to whether or not these things are really happening or if they're just happening in her head. And I thought that was really brilliantly done. What about you?
Yeah, no, it was. I wasn't sure what to make of this movie when it started. I wasn't sure what I was like, this is going to be like an occult, like we're going to get some demons and spirits and stuff. And then you're just watching this girl go through the rhythms of things. And then,
Or are you?
Or are you? And then she has this moment with Amanda, and you're like, wait, okay, so there really is some supernatural stuff. And then Amanda later laughs at her and said, no, I didn't feel anything at all. Or did she? Because later in the movie, like she tries to put some holy water on her, and you hear a sizzle, and like she's got all these chemicals, and you're like, okay, well, is she gonna hit her with Leslie? But it's just acetone and shit.
Was it acetone or was it holy water? That's the thing,
right?
Or was the sizzle in Maud's head, or was it not? Again, because the movie's primarily told from Maud's perspective, it's really hard to know. And I guess if you're going through like a psychotic break, it's hard for you to know as well. So the movie just makes you feel, and you know, I gotta say,
is this happening? Isn't this happening? Is she experiencing this? Like it definitely, yeah.
I thought the movie was fucking brilliant, really, to be honest. It was, especially for a directorial debut, it was like insane. I thought how good it was. But so this takes place in like this really depressing like English seaside town, and as we said, Maud recently converted to Roman Catholicism, and she's incredibly devout, and as the description states, she's pious, and piety is really the act of like self-mutilation as like a dedication to your God or whatever the fuck. But she believes that mankind is amoral and like lustful and wicked, and that only can be saved by, you know, by way of like a savior or whatever.
Yeah.
And throughout the film, we get little bits and pieces about her past. And what little we do get is that she once worked for a hospital where one of her patients died under her care. We don't really know the circumstances of the death, but there's a section where she runs into like an old coworker, and her coworker's like, "Oh, you're still a nurse?" Like they know what happened. Like,
right.
Like something.
But when you see a flashback where it looks like she's trying to do CPR and she just caves her chest in.
Well, that I think was. I think
is that intentional, or
I think that was a little flash of horror. I don't think his chest really caved in. I think that so personally, the way I took it was, I think it's clear that her past life, she was okay. So Amanda, our character in this, who's sick, dying of cancer, she is this like hedonistic sort of like party animal, which makes sense because she's living her last months, years.
Yeah.
She's fucking
enjoying all the vices of the human flesh before she fucking kicks the bucket or can't.
She's drinking, she's partying, she's fucking dudes, fucking women, like she's just doing whatever.
Drugs, yeah.
And there is there's some brief little hints to suggest that Maud lived a similar life prior to turning to Christianity. And the way I took it was, the pieces that I connected was her lifestyle led to a sort of, I guess, her killing her patient, basically. Not maliciously killing him, but just like not being in the right headspace to care for another person. Like maybe she showed up drunk or something, or whatever the fuck. That's sort of the way I took it, based on what her friend said, and based off of Maud sort of recoiling back into that life when she gets kicked out of Amanda's house.
Right.
You know, right away, to deal with the loneliness and the separation from that, she's out at the bar fucking giving handies in the fucking bathroom to strangers and like taking a guy home. And when she takes that guy home, there's another little hint that was her lifestyle. He's like, "Hey, I remember you. You fucked my friend," basically.
Right.
So it seems like she lived a pretty promiscuous life where she was doing drugs and drinking and stuff, and that led to her patient dying, which then led to her basically becoming like this like crazy religious fanatic.
Right.
In her desperation.
It was self-flagellation, which was like some of the worst parts of the movie for me. Like,
towards the
putting
end,
the tax, I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, that shit was fucked up. And it's like they show her like slowly walking around town, and you like hear the squishiness of it. Yeah, it was real bad. But yeah, I mean, that is like really the strength of this movie. You know, talking about the themes of it, the movie really excels with its aesthetics. You've got the director fucking directing the shit out of this movie, and the cinematography in this movie was fucking amazing. It's like murky, and like there's really great use of lighting, which also helps to insinuate that maybe Maud is not being crazy, but that this stuff is really happening to her. There's a lot of scenes where she's like backlit and it looks like she has like a halo around her, or like this sort of just like an aura or whatever. There's a lot of shots of her in front of like windows and things like that.
The wings, yeah.
So yeah, the cinematography was amazing, and the fucking sound design was insane too, because
Yeah.
the movie's very slow paced. It's a very slow paced movie, but then all of a sudden you get this wah, like type of fucking score that like is so unsettling and like really unnerving, and it just drags too when they do that. It like doesn't stop, and it's like it makes you uncomfortable because it's like it's a shitty noise to have to hear. And it just puts you in this situation where you're like, please just like make that fucking stop. But it makes you feel fucking crazy with her. So it really helps to like build that like that fucking craziness where it's like, is this really fucking happening? Like, what am I even watching here? Despite really nothing on screen being that like crazy. Like it's a pretty tame movie.
Yeah, no, it's very
apart from like a couple of little scenes that just make you uncomfortable.
Her flogging herself, like burning herself, that wasn't really it. But then you see her later, she's like picking at it, and like I said, the tack. But yeah, there's really nothing like overtly gory or just unable to.
Yeah. The movie is just aesthetically very jarring, I guess is the best word for it.
Yes.
And that's with the sound design, that's with like the editing. Yeah. The editing is another thing too. Well, again, I want to talk about that last, but you know, when she encounters her visions and stuff, it's not like we're not experiencing it as like a third party, like when you normally watch a film. We're experiencing it as she is experiencing it, and I thought that was really well done. I need to say that again. I need to reiterate it because it does such a good job of that. Like, there's never a cutaway to show her like staring at a normal glass or anything like that. You know, when she does like she's messing around with the towels in the one scene, like where the crucifix falls to the ground for no obvious reason. Like, we see it how she sees it. We're not seeing it like an audience would like is watching her. We're not watching her experience these things. We're experiencing them with her. And it's not that's like rarely done in horror films. Which is why I say this isn't really a horror film, because it's not scary really. It's mostly psychological. You know, again, the scene where God is talking to her, he's talking to her in Welsh. I read. I didn't know what language it was, but you know, we're hearing the voice as she does, and there's like no portion of the scene where we're seeing her answer to him, right? Or where we see her answering to a voice we can't hear. Like, we hear the voice as she's hearing it. So again, I think just a very powerful way of kind of presenting this stuff. A similar movie that I've mentioned a lot this month, Jacob's Ladder, also a psychological drama. And I could talk about it because Marvin's not here. But that's a movie of a man experiencing like his transition to hell, basically. And you don't know it. That's like the big twist of the movie, is that he's dying in like the battlefield of Vietnam or whatever the fuck. But that movie, you're watching this stuff happen to him. You're not experiencing it with him, I don't think. Yeah, maybe a little bit. But yeah, I thought that was the biggest strength of this movie. And there's also a lot of little like subtle shots and stuff talking about the cinematography where, like, you know, I mentioned the windows and the lights in the background, but there was a couple of shots that I noticed, like when she's walking on the beach in certain scenes, there's like a thin layer of water covering the sand. I don't know if you noticed this, but it gives the impression that she's sort of walking on water.
Right. I did not notice that.
There's you know, the ending, I guess we can get into the ending. The film ends in such a way, it's fucking crazy. Like, she basically goes like full on fanaticism. She hears this voice of God who tells her that, like, you know, you're meant to do something big. There's imagery like sprinkled throughout that like suggests what she's going to do. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I mean, after I got about halfway through the movie or so, I kind of figured that she was going to die in some violent way, because saints like die gruesome deaths oftentimes. Like, if you look up the tragedy of saints, there's plenty of fucking that have died and like chopped up by children, or fucking, you know, pressed to death, or fucking grilled, or just all kinds of weird fucking gruesome deaths.
Yeah. So by the end of the film, she decides to pour a bottle of what is it, turpentine or some shit?
Acetone. Probably.
On her body on the beach, and she lights herself on fire. Which, again, what we're watching at this point could only be, it can't be anything other than like severe psychosis and mental illness. But again, it's done in a subtle way where there is that imagery of like the fucking portal opening up in the sky and her angel wings.
It was
and the
serene and peaceful.
Yeah.
And then you get that flash of the reality. Yeah.
Well, is it reality though? We don't know because the whole movie has been presenting both sides of the equation for the most part.
Right.
But
that could be. I mean, also part of the story of the film and the religion of it is that some people walk in their own paths and they see the reality that we see flashes of. And then some people walk in the path of religion and what they see is not like what she sees and experiences is not what most people see and experience. So there's just it's like two different worlds that we're kind of seeing.
Yeah. So every scene is like basically really based on two like inverse interpretations of what's happening. Every scene, like the scene where she's talking to Amanda and they have that like seemingly and it's a slow burn like you said, because that's one of the first scenes where weird shit starts to happen, and essentially they both seem to have this like sort of like
the warmth of God's touch.
They have this feeling of the warmth of God's touch, and it's almost like when it happens to Maud, it's like orgasmic almost.
Yes.
And we see Amanda kind of fall into the same trance-like state that Maud does. And at the time, it seems like that's, she's having the same experience.
Right.
It's not until later where Amanda says, like, I didn't feel that at all. And it's then when the movie reveals itself to you and it's like, oh, yeah, no, everything you've been seeing is sort of operating on both sides of, like, we're presenting both sides of the spectrum. And then that scene culminates in Maud being like, she can't accept the fact that, like, Amanda didn't feel that. She already knows Amanda's an atheist, so she rubs the holy water on her. And very subtly, you hear that, like, that burning sound of the holy water.
Sizzle.
The sizzle. And then Amanda randomly starts talking to her in like this demonic possession like voice and like throws her across the room and shit. And Maud fucking strikes back like by stabbing her to death. And in the death, there's like a moment where you're like, oh man, like Amanda wasn't possessed at all. Like this was a murder. But very briefly you hear like the sound of the demon leaving her body. So it just is never confirming like what is really going on. And even in that ending too, like the ending is like she's burning herself on the beach and there's this portal above her and it's serene, like you said, and she has angel wings and like all the people on the beach are like parishioners almost. They just like bow to her as like the savior. Yeah. But then there's that smash cut that ends the film, which is like her in agony on fire for like
screaming and flesh melting
for like half a second. So I don't even really know like how to, I guess, interpret the film honestly, and I don't think we're meant to really. Again, as everything we've talked about, I just think it was like very clearly, purposely done for you to not really have any sort of confirmation by the end of the movie. But yeah, I mean, how did you take? Personally, given my personal beliefs, like I'm a non-believer. I'm a heathen. So
Church
clearly,
Satanism.
Yeah. So she is clearly suffering a severe psychotic break in this film. For me, I'm assuming you probably took it the same way.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there was, it tries to, like I guess try to explain before, it's a take on the surrealness of reality and how all our realities are different and we experience them differently. Like most of us experience them all the same, but there are plenty of people who experience reality completely differently.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the times there's a perfectly good medical explanation, like somebody with a tumor that can do things and see things that we can't do, or people that have brain surgery that become math geniuses and can fucking solve Rubik's cubes in 3 seconds. Like there's all kinds of weird unexplained things, and I think that this movie is somewhat of a take on that, and like because it shows the two different realities, like you said. And usually it's a smash cut or a quick glimpse into what is and isn't real. But I think we did see a saint here walking around trying to fucking do right by God and slay a demon and then fucking go to heaven. So I don't know. I thought it was fascinating though.
Yeah. So you do think it was literal what we were seeing? Is that what you just said?
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I think that. I think the portrayal of her as a saint, as far as like going through, like she struggled and then found God and become, like you said, pious and almost extremist, probably extremist.
But wait, do you think we saw supernatural things take place in this movie?
Yeah.
Okay, because I think that's where the line is. That's like where the line is drawn. Was what we saw supernatural, or was it not? And again, the movie is specifically built on that ambiguity. You're not meant to really know. My side of it personally is that no, that we're not seeing supernatural stuff. But of course, that's my own personal beliefs influencing that.
Mm-hmm.
But again, you're not meant to know, and that's I think why the movie's brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it doesn't make it easy for you to tell. Like
I don't think there's a way to tell, really.
Doesn't hold your hand.
I don't think there's a way to tell, really. And I think the ending really illustrates that, because you think by the end of the film, like she gets angel wings and like all this stuff. And, oh my God, motherfucker. He got me again I briefly thought, for those of you that don't know, behind the scenes, we see what we're recording here.
Right.
So my mind just literally like made me think that was behind me and not you. That fucking.
You thought Mike was walking up on you?
Yeah, that freaked me the fuck out. Good Lord. Anyhow.
Oh, that's funny.
Fuck, I lost my train of thought now. Oh, by the end of the film, you see the angel wings that she has and this, that, and other thing, and you're like, oh, okay, like, yeah, no, this is legit. She's like literally dealing with this stuff. She's experiencing this. But again, then that smash cut happens, and you're like, ooh, wait, but is she? So it's like there's just not an answer, and that's again why the movie I think was so brilliantly done.
Mm-hmm.
The performances, specifically by Morfydd Clark and Jennifer Ehle, were amazing. I thought.
Yes.
The fact that they were able to just portray that like thematic complexity is just they did a really, really great job.
Yes.
And like we said, exploring like all these different themes like trauma, faith, fundamentalism, sexuality. It's much more than just like a standard like horror film or like religious horror film. So yeah, no, I loved it. I actually think this is one of the best like directorial debuts I think I've ever seen, or maybe I've seen in a long time, but maybe ever seen.
Yeah, it's a really good one.
It was really, really effective. I'm disappointed that it wasn't scary, but that's okay because it was still a fucking great movie. Yeah, I don't know. It's again, we talked about A24. You mentioned in the news that like they're trying to like scale up and do bigger budgets, but like, movies like this doesn't need a fucking big budget. If they just keep pumping shit out like this, like.
Well, but the problem with, and this is what like other like Miramax got their start doing movies like this. The Weinstein Company got their start doing movies like this. There are plenty of like that. Eventually, you kind of have to grow out of the shell because movies like this are hit or miss. Like they lost a lot of money on a lot of movies that aren't these great.
No,
so
for
A24.
Sure.
It's hard to survive if this is going to be the only type of movie that you make. These character driven auteur movies or whatever. It's difficult, but you can definitely put out. Like I said, we have reviewed so many of their movies and we love their movies. So I'm glad that they're going to stick with it. But yeah, I hope they make a lot more like this. This is
Yeah. Film reviewer Josh Larson of Think Christian criticized the film, saying, "It's interesting to me that aside from some of her basic devotional habits, we learn little about Maud's faith. If she was raised in the church, we have no hint of it. If she's acting out of zealous, recent conversion, those details are left vague. I think this disinterest in the nature of Maud's faith is a fault of the film, which could be accused of exploiting both religion and mental illness for ghastly thrills."
Yeah, I don't know if it was a conversion, an extreme conversion. I think she would have had more of a guiding hand versus like her, because we see her as alone. Like,
Yeah.
she's kind of walking her own path. So she definitely somehow, found God and also hears God apparently.
Yep.
But she doesn't have a guiding hand as far as a human. Like, oh yeah, you need to be, you need to be flogging yourself. You need to be walking on tacks. It's almost like she found God through some sort of divinity, because that's, it's called a saint. She's a saint. And saints have their own weird experience and their own weird stories. Like if you read about saints through the history of Christianity, but yeah, I don't think it was any sort of conversion by a priest or somebody, a fanatic priest.
Yeah, I would love to, I got to look it up. I'd love to hear the perspective of Rose Glass, who directed it and wrote it, because I wonder if she takes I would imagine so, since she wrote it. Like, I would imagine she has a firm opinion on the matter, because again, it's such an ambiguous, it's shot so ambiguous, it's just done so ambiguously that two of us could have completely alternate perspectives on it. Obviously, mine is based on, again, my personal beliefs. Yours might be based on your personal beliefs, or just kind of how you took the movie.
I'm agnostic, but yeah, I don't.
But it's a very open for interpretation film, and I wonder if she has specifically a firm no, this she is dealing with psychosis. Because for me, I'm somebody who sees religion, as you know, as a fucking cancer. So
yeah,
of course, to me, this is a movie about how dangerous religion can be, especially to those who are dealing with other sorts of traumas and stuff like that. So yeah,
yeah. Like I said, it could be that she converted to Christianity and she had a tumor and she was hearing voices, and
could be
she had a medical condition that she thought she was talking to God.
Could be.
Absolutely, that could be the case, but
also,
we don't know. Unless you ask the director, what did you mean by this?
Yeah.
We're left open to speculate about it. But I love movies about that, where we can talk and ask questions and discuss it, because we don't know. We have to speculate. We have to wonder.
Yeah. When I mean, there are in recovery programs for addiction, one of the things that they teach you is to find your higher power. And it doesn't have to be God or religion, but it oftentimes is. And it seems like that's where Maud is in this. Not that she went through recovery, but she clearly was transitioning from one lifestyle extreme to another.
Yes.
I think that's kind of where she's at, going from one extreme to the other. And yeah, I don't know. I don't really have anything more to say about it. Just brilliant movie.
Yeah.
I thought.
Great movie.
It's got a 6.7 on IMDb. I think that's actually low. I'm going to bump it up. I'm giving this an 8.
Oh, an 8.
Oh yeah.
I give it. I bump it to a 7. I don't know if it's worth an 8.
Okay.
No, a 7. Yeah. Marvin
gave it a 6.5.
He watched this movie before either of us, I think.
Yeah, he did.
And then he posted in our message board,
this movie
crazy. Is wild.
Yeah.
This movie is wild, is what he said. And that's all he said.
We'll have to catch up with him next week to get his
we'll get his
brief take on the film. But yeah, no, I was really blown away by it, because it all the guessing and questioning that I'm doing now didn't even happen till after the movie. while I was
Right.
watching it, I was pretty much like, oh wow, like this is like I was just pretty blown away by it the whole time. Like again, the cinematography and the sound design really like stood out to me.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I thought
Yeah, the whole movie just puts you in a weird place. And then once you're done with it, you sit down and you start contemplating what you just fucking experienced.
yeah, it's just weird and uncomfortable a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I pulled up just briefly while we were talking an interview with Rose Glass, and she said, I find that gap really interesting. What I've always really liked about cinema is how maybe more than any other medium, it allows you to put yourself into someone else's head. I knew for my first film I wanted to do something very subjective. As I started picking apart the story, I started to wonder what was going on in Maud's life and why her main relationship was with this voice in her head. And she developed it from there. She describes it as a quote unquote weird horror movie. So I guess that's her point.
Interesting.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. That's gonna do it for our take on Saint Maud. I loved it. I would recommend it to pretty much everybody. It's not a scary movie, so you know, if you're not really into horror movies, I would say this is a good movie that you could watch that like kind of borders on the edge of horror. Like there's some creepy moments in the movie, but nothing real. There was
the flogging.
There is a jump scare.
Self-flagellation. Yeah.
There's one jump scare that actually got me. It's when she turns into like when Amanda turns into the demon. And
right.
Like,
Yeah.
It's a little bit.
She's trying to like. She's like, I'll stop that, and then
yeah. So you know that was it. Another thing Rose Glass said is that each of them, meaning the two characters, thinks they could help the other. And they just both completely misunderstand each other. We're all living in the same real world, but subjectively experiencing it through these fleshy bodies we're stuck in and those brains we have.
Yep.
We don't get an opportunity to see these two women occupying the screen together like that. Oh, we don't get the opportunity to see two women occupying the screen like that. So she's praising the actors, and rightfully so. Yeah, go check this movie out. It's really fucking good.
Perceptions of reality.
If you have seen it, leave a comment and let us know what you thought of the film. More importantly, let us know what your interpretation of it was, because I think, again, wildly subjective. Do you see this as some psychological break or an actual paranormal experience happening here?
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe not paranormal. I don't think religious people would consider communing with God as paranormal. More as like divinity or some shit. I don't know.
Yeah, divine. Yeah, some sort of divine
intervention. Yeah. But yeah, leave a comment. Let us know what you thought about this movie. I thought it was great. Once again, check out harshlanguage.tv. We have some merch up there now. Feel free to pick something out, but no pressure. And all our links are there. So if you want to go listen on Spotify or Apple, you can find them there. Next week, what are we talking about next week? We're doing...
Make Marvin Watch. We're doing the Poltergeist.
No, next week. Next week isn't Make Marvin Watch. The following week is. Next week is just the Poltergeist. This is my Make Marvin Watch.
Oh, right. Yeah. Sorry, I just picked Poltergeist. Right,
I'm sorry. You?
Well, it's kind of a Make Marvin Watch. They're all Make Marvin Watches, if you ask me.
Technically, yeah. So next week is the Poltergeist, the classic.
The Poltergeist,
It's a great movie, one of my favorite horror movies. So check back with us next week. We may be changing our release schedule. We'll keep everybody posted. We'll do like a fucking community post or some shit if we decide to. But yeah, check back next week with the Poltergeist, and we will catch you then. Thanks for hanging out, everybody.
Basta.